Sometimes, the unexpected is better than trying to plan out your whole day. During our stay in Osaka, we had decided the last day there we would leave as unplanned and go with the flow since it's Pat's first time in Japan. I didn't actually like the idea at all, to be honest. I like knowing what I'm going to do next and having a set schedule. Turns out that morning of our free day, I randomly remembered about watching a shorts on the Hello Kitty Shinkansen, so I really wanted to check it out. I got super excited since this was on my bucket list, but it never made it on the to-do list. We did a quick Google search on how and where to ride it, as this was a spontaneous decision of our day. We were looking at the maps and schedule, then we realized this was going to be the best spontaneous trip for both of us, since we would ride the Hello Kitty train to Kobe and try Kobe beef, which was actually on Pat's bucket list. Our day was filled with ups and downs, with the first incident happening when we got to Osaka station. We planned to get there early so that I could be the first in line and film the Hello Kitty Shinkansen arriving. As the train started coming, I asked Pat if it was the Hello Kitty one, and I got my phone ready, but he said no, the train looks red. So I put my phone away. Next thing you know, the Hello Kitty logo passes by us and stopped in front of a different platform. We had to run to line up and make sure we were able to get a seat since the second car is unreserved and has a themed cabin. The first car was a souvenir shop with a photo spot, and everyone was crowding to get into it. I went to line up while Pat stayed back to make sure no one took our seats. The first car was very small, and out of the fact people were taking pictures in the shop as well, we ended up passing Kobe before I could even buy anything. At this point, Pat came to find me and said it was fine to take our time since we could just use our JR pass to go back. By the time we get off the train, we ended up in Himeji. We took some pictures there and bought some souvenirs to remember our little mistake. Before going back to the Shinkansen, we wanted to grab a quick snack because we didn't have any breakfast or lunch. We didn't know where to go and also didn't want to leave the station, so we tried to find something nearby. We saw a big sign with Gildan bowls for 450 to 500 yen, which we thought was pretty cheap. We walked in and saw a bunch of locals eating at this place, so we thought it must be good. The Gildan was actually very tasty and comforting, especially if you top it with the green onions and raw egg. But we didn't know that the price advertised outside was only for breakfast. For desserts, we stopped by Mr. Donuts because Pat was still upset with Koi Donuts experience. If you haven't checked out our Kyoto video, check it out at the top. Mr. Donuts have a pretty large selection of donuts, and I got the mochi one because I really want to try it. It looks so pretty and delicious. Pat got the custard-filled one, pretty standard for him. This place was decent, but nothing spectacular, but we were still pretty happy. We thought the service was pretty good because they included water with your donut even if you don't buy any drinks. And the donut tasted good, but it wasn't something that I would go back for more. We finally arrived in Kobe and found out there's a street called Ikuta Road that is dedicated to a restaurant that served the famous Kobe beef. We tried going into one of them and got rejected. So we went into a second restaurant. We still got rejected, but this time the person told us they were fully booked because many people from neighboring countries have vacation at this time of year. At this point, I thought about giving up and I felt a little embarrassed, but Pat wanted to keep trying. We walked across the street and stumbled into another restaurant, hoping they would let us in. To our surprise, the waiter at the front said we could walk in, but needed to wait 20 minutes for one of the guests to finish up. Like they say, third time's a charm. While we waited outside the restaurant, we were checking out their menu and reading up some reviews on Google.
Kobe beef. Mouriya beef. Japanese Wagyu.
One of the bloggers I found on Google did a comparison between the Mouriya beef versus Kobe at this restaurant, and although I don't remember all the details of their post, they mentioned the Mouriya beef is a similar quality to Kobe, but at a more affordable price. I decided, why don't we do the same thing? On the menu, they had different cuts to choose from like sirloin, ribeye, prime rib, etc., and also different grades and weights. We decided to go with a ribeye for the cut and an A5 grade to make sure the comparison was fair. The Mouriya cut was 7,500 yen for 150 grams, whereas the Kobe cut was 16,950 yen for the same weight. More than double in price. Even though it was expensive, 16,950 yen was significantly cheaper than the prices we would see back home. The conversion would have been around 164 Canadian dollars with no tip or tax, which to us was a steal. Since we opted for the cheaper dinner set, it came with an appetizer, grilled veggies, and the beef itself, but no rice or anything else. One thing we were a little sad about was that the chef cut off a big chunk of the fat and left it to grill on the side, and we weren't sure why he did this. The chef prepared the Mouriya cut for us first, and it blew our minds. When people say the meat melts in your mouth, they aren't kidding. The soft, fatty texture with no hints of gaminess to be found. I only needed salt and pepper and I was a happy camper. Andy tried some of the other spices and sauces, but for me, I just wanted to taste pure beef. Next up was the Kobe cut. You'll see in my face that the experience was on a totally different level. I tried so hard to savor the moment, but it flew by so fast. Some of you may be wondering, was it worth it for double the price? I think it was. It had an extra layer of umami that I can't describe in words and was a truly magical experience. But if I were to ever go back to Mouriya, I would rather load up on their cut of beef because the difference is quite marginal in my opinion. Remember those fat pieces I talked about earlier? Turns out the chef was saving them to fry with some bean sprouts to end off the experience. Since the meat itself had great marbling and fattiness all throughout, I can understand why the big chunks of fat would be trimmed off and diluted with some plain veggies. However, we were still disappointed to end the experience this way and felt it would have been better if we were given the option to mix some of the extremely fatty pieces with other pieces of steak. I personally love those fatty bits on the ends of my steaks, so to have that taken away from me to be mixed with bean sprouts, which I don't even eat in general, was a big disappointment. All in all, I would love to go back to this place, and like I said before, I would just load up a ton on the Mouriya beef, and since it's a pretty affordable price, it won't be too much to break our bank, and maybe next time we can try the prime rib instead of getting the ribeye.
We just had Kobe beef. In Kobe town?
Kobe.
Yeah, in Kobe.
It was so good.
So good. After a very satisfying dinner, we headed back to Osaka to explore some of the touristy area that I wanted to show Pat. Of course, we had to go to Dotonburi and take pictures of Osaka Tower and cool decoration outside of the shops. Pat found his game store and being the avid gamer, he really wanted to check it out and compare it to the stores we have at home. He said it reminded him of Best Buy, but bigger and with toys. After getting all the necessary tourist shots with Glycoman, I wanted Pat to try Strawberry Mania. I ended up getting a strawberry Daifuku with red bean inside and Pat got a custard one, of course. We went into this little alleyway where it was a little quieter so I could film our reaction, and I noticed there were these two Japanese girls walking by that were giving us weird looks and giggling. Awkward. The Daifuku tasted so good with the right amount of sweetness and chew. One thing we regret is not getting enough Strawberry Mania, but it was a little pricey.
That strawberry is so sweet.
It is very sweet.
So I got red bean, and you got a custard?
Custard.
Before heading back to the hotel, there was one last spot I wanted Pat to try, which was the famous Purin shop. Before our bittersweet night ended, we had a little bit of bitterness. I got so mad at Pat because I was trying to take a picture of the Purin with the shop and the background, but he was standing in the way. We ended up getting into an argument over a little pudding, I know, but in the end we enjoyed our sweet treat in the hotel and called it a night.
And I am going to try it. How good this pudding is. Wow. It's really good.
For 350 yen, it better be worth it.
This is really good.
It kind of reminds me of like a creme brulee, but better. The flavor and everything. I guess it was worth buying it. But it is kind of pricey, but I think it's good for like a one-time kind of experience.
Look at the color on this. It's like nice
Rich
orange.
orange, yeah.
This is our last day in Osaka. Tomorrow we're going to Tokyo. We had a pretty good time here, I would say.